Hello, and welcome to Dum Dums, live on Radio Regent. A little bit of technical difficulties here, but hey, the show is called Dum Dums. So this is the show where we pose pedestrian questions to experienced and educated experts. I'm Donny Kehoe. My co-host Hannon Eunice is off again this week. So joining me tonight, we have a special treat. Live on air is our much referenced producer, Alex.
Hello. Thanks for having me on air tonight.
Yeah, you do chip in with a comment every now and again, but how does it feel to be co-hosting this week?
It feels really good, actually. Yeah, I'm very excited. It's first time hosting a radio show, so or co-hosting a radio show.
And this is, you really started with the high life here. Aim for the stars.
Yes.
So that was the opening theme from Chips, if you didn't recognize it. So what could we be talking about this week, Alex?
We're actually talking about first responders and sort of the role that they play and the experiences that they have responding to emergencies.
Excellent. And Chips, that's a show that's well within our generational lines, I believe.
Yeah, kind of. Maybe on the... No, you know what? It ended in 83. I wasn't even born then. So.
Yeah, well, hey, we have TV Land. You know?
Oh, that's true.
So I don't know if that's on Netflix or not, but...
Probably.
So, yeah, we'll be speaking to some first responders. We'll be talking to... a member of the Toronto Police Service and a paramedic, and we'll be learning a few things, hopefully educating ourselves and you, the listeners, as we always hope to do, about a few things you may not know about being a first responder and what's involved with that, and what we should know as the public if it comes to an emergency.
Well, I also think it's really interesting to I think a lot of people have an idea of first responders, and it's kind of like you race to a scene, you arrest somebody and you race away, or you race to a scene, you take somebody away in an ambulance. But like, I feel like there's probably a lot more to that than we even realize. Like, we're just being naive to that.
Yeah, so it's not all just constant action. There's, there's moments in between that.
Yeah, there's not a never-ending like action theme song going along with them. So.
Yeah, I also have a feeling that unlike what we see in a lot of television and movies, things don't always just wrap up in a nice little bow after 30 minutes or an hour.
No. There's probably months of in certain cases, paperwork and going to court or whatever. So.
Well, if anyone out there listening does have questions on this week's topic, as always, you can reach us on Twitter at Dum Dums Radio, which is spelled without the B. It's DUMS Radio. And
I'm standing by the phone. We're still waiting for our first live caller to call in and ask their question.
Maybe this week will be the week.
Right.
647-344-4134. We'd love to hear from anyone out there. So, Alex,
yes.
do we have any clips or anything lined up this week?
Well, yeah, I found this one clip. I thought it was kind of a little humorous to kind of line up the idea of like first responders and police officers and some of the things that they have to deal with and kind of some funny examples of things that they may encounter when they either respond to a call or pull somebody over or whatever it is. So.
How dare you joke about this subject?
Well, I mean, I think there is some humor, some underlying humor in these types of things. So I'm just trying to pull it up here.
Yeah,
Stand by.
Yeah, you have to multitask today.
I know it's a little bit more difficult today. Why isn't this working? All right, maybe we should just just introduce our guest, and
All
maybe
right.
I'll get it up later.
A humorous clip pending. Don't hold your breath. But,
No, I hope it's as funny as it's made.
All
out
right.
to be.
Well, today we have two guests actually. So our first guest live in the studio is Constable David Hopkinson. He's the media relations officer for the Toronto Police Service. David, how are you today?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm great. So we were talking here about basically people's impressions of what a first responder has to do and what their life entails versus the reality. Neither of us are experts on this, but hopefully you can shed some light. What are some common misconceptions about your job that you find you run into a lot?
I think you guys have hit the nail on the head with your earlier comments. Everybody thinks that it's 95% action and there's only a little bit of paperwork, when the opposite is true. There's very little action as you would see in the TV shows. It's paperwork. It's dealing with people. It's talking.
So it's not like Reno 911 or anything like that.
It's not like Reno 911.
So I mean, give us an idea of like a given day or when you are responding to a call. What is that experience like?
Well, it depends on the call. It's all about mental preparedness. When you get a call, you sort of have to imagine in your own mind different outcomes, different dangers that you could be going into, and you have to start investigating even before you've gotten to the call. And again, like I said, it depends on the call. Some calls are more dangerous than others. Some calls you have to be, you have to have more about you than others. But depending on that, you go through scenarios in your own mind. You play them out, and then you act on them once you get on scene, taking into consideration what people tell you.
One thing we were talking about before we went on air here is that some of these situations, probably a lot of these situations, can be de-escalated, and that's a big part of the job. What are some ways you can do that so it doesn't have to come down to big intense moment of action?
I use humor, and a lot of officers use humor. A lot of situations are very tense because people have a lot invested in them, and sometimes it just takes a breaking of the ice, a comment, an observation, to get people thinking about something different. And I use humor. Other officers use other methods, but I believe people are looking for a way out of a tense situation, and you have to give it to them. And if you give it to them, you probably can get away with nobody getting hurt and resolving whatever problem brought the police.
So, I was wondering about this, that, that goes against what I think maybe myself and maybe other people thought, that, an officer is responding to a call, and it's this, they might put themselves in this mindset of it's very aggressive, they're putting their game face on, but it's more, one, being prepared, but also, and being cautious at the same time, but also, I'm going to try and, be open-minded about it. Yeah, de-escalate, be open-minded about it.
Well, the problem is that we're being called by people who have different perceptions. Mm-hmm. So I see many times that we're called, the situation is not as tense or not as bad as the people that are reporting it. If road rage, for example, we get called to scenes where people have a disagreement about their driving or there's an accident, and they're heated. And when we get there, when you look at that from outside, you can see that although they're heated, they don't really want a conflict. They're just angry about the situation. So if you take them apart, you let them tell you their story, it usually de-escalates that situation. And that's one of the ways, or one of the things that I've seen in everyday patrol, that we de-escalate situations and try and bring about a better resolution.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, Sort of touching on that a little bit. Obviously, when people are calling in a call, that's a very emotional reaction. I mean, it's not, people probably aren't sitting back, evaluating the situation and being completely rational. Do you have any suggestions to members of the public that might be listening on what to do if they are in an emergency situation? What are the best steps to take?
And again, that depends on the emergency, but we look for communication. We have to find out exactly, why something has happened and what the relevant dangers are, both to the people that are involved, the public, and ourselves. So we're going to be asking questions. We don't know what happened, so we're looking to those people, witnesses, victims, to tell us what they're going through. Once they tell us that, then we can go from there. And that part of that de-escalation is getting someone to calm down long enough to be able to tell you what happened, and that seems to diffuse a lot of situations.
I want to know what sort of the most ridiculous thing or maybe not ridiculous, bad choice of words, but the most odd call that you've ever gone to.
I can't begin to think. I've been to some pretty strange scenes. Some of them inappropriate for even a radio show. It can be the most innocuous of things. Bank robbers that rob banks with masks that don't have holes cut in them. It's the strangest things. Things that set people off that you would never think would set somebody off. You hear about, you see on, these reality shows, cops and stuff. You look at the behavior of people and you think, there's no way somebody in their right mind would behave like that. But I'm telling you from first experience, people behave oddly at times, and it comes out.
Funny you mention that, because I've pulled up our clip, which is from Cops, and I'd like to play it here. I guess I got to preface this a little bit because it does. There are some visuals. It's a guy that's been pulled over by the police. His car's been swerving, so you assume he's been drinking and driving. So here's the clip.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead and stand right there for me. How much alcohol have you had to drink tonight?
I just had a couple of beers before I left instead.
I have a real good suspicion that you've had more than just a couple of beers, but that's just based on what I'm getting. But the one thing that leads me to believe that there's maybe some narcotics involved, do you have any idea what that might be? Just a lucky guess? Just a lucky guess? Do you have any narcotics in the vehicle?
No. Other than a little bit of pot, no.
Okay.
But
you might have a little bit of pot?
yes,
Okay, that might be inside the vehicle?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, no. Except for maybe in the ashtray, a couple of roaches. But no, I haven't smoked any pot tonight.
You haven't smoked any pot tonight?
No.
You haven't smoked any pot tonight?
No.
Holy mackerel. Okay, but the one thing that led me to believe that there might be some marijuana in the car tonight.
27-14-7. Call 73-10-4. Go ahead and start a total.
Right behind you here, brother.
Very good.
Very good. Powers of
I
observation.
didn't even know it was there.
Amazing how that happens.
That was a joint behind the person's
Yes,
ear.
yes, that was
for the listening audience.
a funny cigarette. So I think, are there situations like that where you run it like that blatant of like just ridiculous stuff? Common.
Listen, marijuana is illegal, and but people are indiscreet in the way they're going to smoke it. If you walk up Yonge Street on any given night, you probably will find, or you could find somebody smoking marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had that happen to me. And when you stop to talk to them, things like that happen. Throw the cigarette away, but there's still a smell. The officers aren't stupid. We can smell that you have been smoking. So, in that situation, the truth usually wins out. The officers are, we're not looking to put everybody behind bars. There are, more serious offenses and less serious offenses, and we just want to know that people are learning from their experience. speaking to the officer in the right way, letting him know that you understand that what you've done is wrong, you may get off. You never know. Hiding stuff, running, that's a sure way to get yourself arrested. So, but things like that are common.
I mean, is that when you're on a call and speaking to somebody involved in whatever the incident is that all is that the biggest thing that police officers would like to get from somebody is just like cooperation, but obviously cooperation, but like just have them speak to you and not like
you're
defensive.
a person.
Defensive.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people lie to us. And when you have some experience speaking to people, you can see it easily. I had a guy. I stopped a guy. He looked like he was homeless. He was about 58 to 63 years old, and he had a $4,000 track bike that he was walking with down the street. A $4,000 race bike, and he's about 70 pounds overweight. So I said, what are you doing with that bike? Oh, by the way, it was a woman's bike. What are you doing with that bike? He says, my mom stopped by and she bought me this bike for my birthday. So I said, come on, you're killing me here. There's no way your mom stopped by and bought you a bike at 58 years old for your birthday that you can only ride on a track. And there had been a bicycle stolen down the street about an hour and a half later. So, I ended up arresting him and recovering the bike and giving it back to the owner. That kind of thing. It's comical when you think about it.
How intense is the job in terms of, day-to-day, like we were joking earlier about paperwork and everything, but, actually on a scale, how intense is it from day to day? It with 10 being highest and.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the day.
Yeah.
Some days are really, really, really boring. But the one thing about policing that is true is that no 2 days are the same. One day, you're trying your hardest not to fall asleep. You can't. There's no calls. You're not investigating people. Maybe there's a snowstorm and you're just helping people out with their cars. And the next day, you're running after people through alleyways and all kinds of different things happen from day to day, even sometimes from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. It can be so diverse. So we're prepared for things that may happen, but you never know what's going to happen. And I think that's one of the exciting things about being a policeman.
Well, yeah, I imagine that's exciting, but it also must be a bit stressful too, that sort of inconsistency. Nobody wants a job or career that's monotonous, but to just have to always be on your toes like that and have that sort of moment maybe not come. And is that rough? If you're waiting for the other shoe to drop sometimes?
Yeah, it's well documented. The unfortunate part about policing is it's very stressful on your personal life. Police officers have a shorter life span or life expectancy. We have a fairly high divorce rate, and officers see traumatic things you would never expect to see in your lifetime. And we sometimes internalize it. There's only a couple of ways of dealing with trauma, internalizing it being one. Humor, I use humor, but, it really can get to you and it can affect how you deal with other people, how you deal with your colleagues, family and friends. So the stresses are, when you see these traumatic incidents, they really can play on you. Mm-hmm. You sort of have to stand back from them and try and be neutral. It's very difficult. If you've ever arrested somebody, coppers are very child-friendly. We love children. We love and protect those people who can't protect themselves. So when something happens against, elderly or children, we tend to take that more personally. And it's difficult to see some of the things that you see commonly in this job when it comes to that.
Prior to the show, you were telling us about a story in New York that, an incident involving police and somebody that you witnessed. As a police officer, is that something that if you see something wrong and you're not on duty or you're like out of the country, do you have that inherent sort of desire to step in and do something?
I believe that's what makes a cop. Something happened in your life where you want to help people and you have a strong desire, even putting yourself at risk to help them. So when even off duty, there's technically no such thing as off duty, but you do it yourself. I guarantee it. You're driving down the street and somebody cuts you off. Oh, I wish I was a cop. I'd stop that guy. Give him a ticket. That's what people commonly think. I get that all the time. We're the same way. You see something and you know it's wrong and you want to do something about it, but it's difficult. That can start massive conflicts. Sometimes it's better for us to observe and call it in just like anybody else would. Out of the country, although the desire is there, that's a difficult scenario to put yourself in. The laws are sometimes a little different, and we have no power as police officers outside of Canada. So that's a difficult situation.
Well, I guess that kind of goes with a lot of what's involved with the job is that there's a lot of, there must be a lot of sort of on-the-spot thinking and decision-making on what can I do, what should I do, is this the best strategy to take? I imagine that almost all police officers must have a good, quick sense of...
I think police officers do. I think a lot of it comes from experience. I don't think they're a huge extension from you yourselves.
Okay.
If you saw something wrong on the street, you'd know it immediately. Wow, that wasn't right. They shouldn't have done that. I wish somebody could do something about it. We're just the people that do something about it. You make very, very quick decisions, but it's based on your feeling somebody did something wrong. As a police officer now, you have to quantify that. You have to know in your mind what they did wrong and what you are supposed to do about it. And knowing that comes from experience, training, but the initial feeling, it's something you're ingrained with as a child. We all know what's right and wrong. And we all know when somebody's done something right or wrong. So.
Do you, I think we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but how do you deal with somebody when you know they're lying to you? What tactics do you use to pull that truth and massage them to for them to trust you, right? How do you do that?
That depends on the scenario or situation. Let's say somebody was lying to me about something. If I can prove them wrong, I let them lie to me. And then if it's going to be a court case, let them lie to me, tell the judge what they said, and then show my proof that they were lying. Then you look horrible in front of a judge.
Yeah.
Right? If you know they're lying and you can prove it, and it's maybe not important to your court case, I look them in the face and tell them, buddy, I don't believe you.
Yeah.
You're lying to me, and here's why. Why don't you tell me the truth and save yourself, a lot of trouble.
So I think one of the important things to take away, if anyone's listening, whether you've done something...
I hope people are listening.
Yeah. whether you've done something illegal or not, whether you're calling in an emergency call, whether you're stopped by a police officer, no matter what the situation is, I think just being honest and being respectful is probably your best strategy. Because, like we were talking about, it's a stressful job, so be nice to your police officers, people.
Yeah, you know what? And I said this earlier when we were speaking before the show. I said that I could teach anyone to do this job. And if in any scenario where you see police officers, if you had the same knowledge and the same responsibility as those police officers, you would act in the same way they would. There's a lot of things that you see on the news or you hear about where you question whether an officer should or should not have done something. But if you had the same information, if you knew everything the officer does, I think most people would make the same decisions that the officers do. I believe I can explain almost anything that the police do, and you would do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the media, maybe not you specifically, but does the media skew some of the details of stuff to fit their agenda, or like, do you think the media and police have a pretty good understanding of that relationship?
It's funny you say that. I'm the media relations officer for Toronto.
Right.
So I deal with the media every day.
Yeah.
I speak to reporters. I do interviews every day. And for the most part, they like to get the story right.
Mm-hmm.
The problem exists in perception, and perception and the truth are different things. I believe perception is more powerful than the truth. So when the media comes on the scene and they ask somebody what happened, they're asking that person's observations or opinions. Those observations or opinions can be something they saw or something they were told, and they're sometimes not right.
Mm-hmm.
So when we come on scene and people tell us stories, we're respectful and professional. We take their stories down, but you must investigate, because if somebody ran across our room here, the four of us that are in here would have a different description of that person. We would all get certain things right, but we would invariably get certain things wrong. So investigation is about, finding a road through the perceptions that people have, finding what are to get to the real story. I don't think the media tries to do it, but I think sometimes they operate on misinformation. We've been dealing with a story that involves sexual assault by a radio personality. And we've gotten,
not either of us, by the way.
No.
We've gotten a lot of calls on this, and a lot of people have asked very specific questions. Why haven't the police investigated, that kind of thing? But people have to understand that we can investigate where we see something on TV or hear something. We can do it. But in a lot of situations, we need someone to come forward, to step forward and say, and be a complainant and say what that person did is wrong. Until that happens, we really can't start a criminal investigation. I know we offer other services to victims, but for the investigative part of it, we needed a complainant. So even though there's a large outcry, people aren't thinking of the actual victims. The actual victims may not wish to come forward to the police, and they may not wish to become involved in a court case, and that is their right to make that choice. If they come forward, we're going to take their story, we're going to be respectful and honest, we're going to keep their confidence, and we're going to investigate. And if we have, if there's a charge that we have a reasonable expectation of conviction for, we will charge the person. If not, then we offer other options for counseling, to make the person, to have the person deal with their experience. People have to understand that, and they don't.
Well, I guess that goes to toward what we were talking about at the very start of the show, is that these misconceptions that the cops just show up at someone's door and make an arrest, and that's the job. But behind that, there's investigation. There's all the work after the arrest. I would hope people listening today start to kind of have a bit of perspective about the things that they might not see every day that is involved. Well, this has been very informative. Mm-hmm. Learned a lot of things.
Thank you very much for telling us more about what frontline and first responding officers do. That was
listen,
very interesting.
I love the experience. If you guys ever need me to come back, I'm more than willing.
Sounds good.
So we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be back to talk about the paramedic side of things. That was the theme from Bullet. Sorry for the silence there. We were just... Again, the show is Dum Dums. It's community radio. We appreciate your patience. We're learning, though. That's what the show's all about, learning. We're learning how to put on a radio show.
All the time.
Every day, another beautiful learning experience.
I learn what a new button every week does.
Unmute.
Unmute. Yeah.
So no, that was very interesting.
Yeah.
So we're here back in the studio live. Again, I'll just toss out our information because we didn't get that caller yet.
Come on.
If you're in the Toronto area or you don't mind paying long distance, it's 647-344-4134. Or it's free from anywhere to just tweet at us at Dum Dums Radio. DUMS radio.
The lines are open, and I'll even throw in a spatula if people call in.
we will go to a Sears and buy a spatula.
Two. I'll give you the extra one is free.
We're not paying for shipping, though.
No.
So we're here now to talk about the other side of first responders. Well, we don't have a firefighter, unfortunately, which would be interesting, maybe on a future show. But
not enough time.
But right now in the studio, we have Commander Peter Rotolo from the Toronto Paramedic Service. He's been with the TPS for 40 years. Hello there, Peter.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for joining us here. And so you were in the studio when we had Constable Hopkinson with us. You mentioned while we were on our break here that a lot of what he was saying was very familiar for you as well, a lot of the same sort of things.
I think it's familiar with all first responders. We're dealing with a lot of different people and personalities out in the streets and in the homes. So as first responders, we see all walks of life.
And I'm sure you see the best and the worst of people. And how does that affect your sort of opinion on people in general, on humanity in a very vague sense?
Well, I guess the majority of people, and we're very fortunate, because people will call 911 when they see someone in trouble. And whether they want to engage in helping that person or simply picking up the phone in 911. So there's a lot of good out there, and there's a lot of bad out there too. But it's knowing the environment. But the majority of people are want to help.
I have the thinking or the sense that like when police respond, it's right after a violent crime has occurred, and when paramedics respond, it's to help those who have been injured. So kind of my understanding is that paramedics may not be in the same type of danger as police officers, but is that untrue? That's
certainly we don't try to get in danger, because if we're injured, we certainly can't help the individuals. But paramedics do have an inherent risk in their job. Whether it's injuries, we have a lot of injuries on our job. We have a lot of unknowns that we run into, and violence against paramedics, it happens more often than we would like it to happen. Paramedics are trained, we train right from day one. Look for your environment, check your environment, watch your environment, so that when they don't we don't like to see paramedics get themselves into dangerous situations. Unfortunately, that does happen. And we like to see, as the police officer before me said, you do a lot of talking. You try to de-escalate a lot of violent situations. You remember, we're going to calls where it's not just about helping someone, a loved one that's fallen ill or had a heart attack, but we go into a lot of overdoses and a lot of violent type situations that occur, and you respond together with the police officers, and you're entering that environment. Do we wish it didn't happen? It does, though, unfortunately.
Now, I'm sure you also must see a lot of calls where really paramedics would not be necessary. Most people not being any sort of medical experts.
It's interesting you say that, because we just started a campaign this month. Actually, the advertisement just started yesterday about making the right call. And knowing when to call 911, if you got a sprained finger, do you need a paramedic to show up? Well, no, you don't. So we're trying to educate the public in making that right call and know when to call 911. We're very busy in this city, and when we respond, we have to respond to all emergency calls. So when you call because you cut your finger, that's taking an ambulance away from someone who really could use it.
You say that you're busy in the city. I remember growing up, and I took St. John's ambulance or something like that, and they said if you ever have to call 911, ask for an ambulance and a fire truck, and the reasoning was that the firefighters have similar training, like similar rescue training, but there's more fire engines, and so that they can get there quicker. Is that you're shaking your head? And saying,
well, firefighters are trained as first responders. Mm-hmm. They're trained in first aid, CPR, and they do carry an automatic defibrillator. And certainly they can respond quicker only because they're in the fire stations. Whereas a lot of times ambulances are out mobile in different areas of the city because our call volume is certainly higher. But when you call 911, the call taking process is when you are transferred over to the paramedic communications center, and there you'll be asked certain questions by the dispatcher or the call taker. And that call taker will ask you, is the patient breathing? Is the patient conscious? Are they alert? They'll ask you certain questions. Based on the answers that they get from you as a citizen is whether we will tier that response. And tiered means that we'll send fire, police, as well as a paramedic to the call. And those normally are for high priority calls. Or if we can't get there within mandated time frames, then we'll send the fire department there to administer first aid until we arrive. The training is different. A paramedic takes 2 years to become a paramedic. Firefighters are trained in first aid and in defibrillation, and they have an awareness knowledge. I mean, certainly I'd like to have a firefighter there, because they're trained and they'll calm and they can react properly in that situation. But the training and difference, we do medicine, they do first aid.
Okay. Now, if for the general public as well, someone might see an emergency happening. If someone is not really knowledgeable, I'm sure everyone wants to help, but do you have suggestions for people if they don't really know what they're doing, say if they think someone's having a heart attack or something along those lines?
If all they do is call 911, that starts the process, right? That's the people helping the people. If they have knowledge and they can do it safely, I've been to calls over my years where someone has want to help and they go crossing the street and they get hit by a car because they're so eager to go and help that individual that they saw collapse across the street, they forget for their own personal safety, and they get hit by a car because they don't look. Right? You don't want people unnecessarily to get at risk.
And how, like in an incident like that, like how much more challenging is it for paramedics? Like you've doubled the incidents, but now you've got to choreograph even a larger kind of response and everything. Like
and that actually happens every day, where we'll go to car accidents. You have multiple patients, and the first crew on the scene would have to then what we call triage. They would have to assess very quickly who's the most serious and then call for backup units. Triage, we like to say you take 15 seconds on each patient and see who's the most serious and what you can do to make that difference. Sometimes it's just adjusting an airway. I've been to plane crashes where you have dozens of injured people, and you've got to assess. So it's a choreography, but paramedics are spend 2 years in training. It's a long training and it's difficult training. So by the time they come out and graduate and do all the examinations that we have to do for provincial certifications, they're pretty knowledgeable.
They know their stuff by that point.
They know their stuff. I've been on the job for 41 years, and I'll tell you, the day when I started compared to when I started to what the paramedics have today, what a difference. And I would put my hands in any one of their hands.
Okay. And Alex, just I think your question kind of goes back to talking about the most important thing off the bat is to keep the paramedics or the general public safe, because if someone gets injured, then they can't help the person who's already injured. So safety first, people. be careful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing I was reading a little bit, and I was surprised to find out how much time the paramedics actually have to stay with their patient, essentially, when they finally take them to the hospital. Like, it can be a long time.
And that's a problem for us.
Yeah.
We call it offload delay.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the healthcare system in Ontario is getting overburdened. And a lot of times you'll see, you can go to any emergency department in the city and you can see 5, 6, 7 ambulances sometimes in the driveway. And the crews are there with their patients waiting in the emerge for beds to come up for to transfer the patient to the hospital bed, which is a problem for us because every time those vehicles are in the emerge, it takes that vehicle off the road to respond. So, that's not good for us.
Is that a little bit, I'm not saying that all those calls are this way, but can it be sometimes that those are the right and wrong calls that you're talking about? Like, some people are making a 911 call and it shouldn't be that, and it's taking an ambulance off the road.
Takes the vehicle off the road, and if they're on a stretcher, and if the hospital emergency is busy, then it's not a priority for the hospital, right? So that patient ends up sitting on our stretcher. The crew then is tied up, and they can't respond to emergency calls, where they're really needed. So, as we say, we like to say, make the right call.
Yeah. Now, if someone does have a situation where they're not sure if it's an emergency, they are concerned. Is there an alternate option? I mean, most people know 911 off by heart, but is there something they can do?
There's telehealth, where you can call telehealth, and there's registered nurses at the other end, and you can ask them or talk to them about what the problem that you have, and they'll advise you, and they'll say, you know what, go to the hospital, or call a cab, or get to the hospital, or call 911. So there is that type of system. There's walk-in clinics. Certainly there's walk-in clinics throughout the city. If you've got coughs and stuff like that, well, you know what, go to a walk-in clinic on that. But if you're ever in doubt, call 911. We're still going to come. But, what's our emergency what your emergency is may not necessarily be our emergency, but that's okay. We don't want people not to call, but we want you to call educated. And that's why this campaign we started about making the right call.
I sometimes wonder, for first responders, if those jobs, your job, Constable Hopkinson's job, if that is enough of an adrenaline rush that you guys don't need to go skydiving or bungee jumping or anything like that.
Put it this way: every day I come to work, I have no clue what I'm doing.
Right. Same here.
It changes so often every day. So, you get that adrenaline. You get that good call and things like that. I know my son's on the job. Both my sons are on the job, and my one son, he goes skydiving. He just came back from Ottawa doing whitewater rafting. I mean, and you go like, really, But that's their release. A lot of the stressors of the job, as the Constable was telling, we see a lot of tragedy. We see a lot of things that, you'll never see in your life, and hopefully you'll never will. We go to a lot of things. The Constable talked about, infants and children. Well, we're the ones that have to deal with that. And try to save them and stuff. So, those stressors do accumulate over time, and a lot of paramedics, will internalize it or find other ways and means to de-stress themselves. So a lot of paramedics, as Constable Hopkinson said, they turn to themselves. Now, we have, staff psychologists and employee assistance plans to help paramedics and to deal with some of those stressors that they see on the job every day.
absolutely. And I'm sure that's really important, finding outlets to deal with that stress so you don't internalize it. Do you have anything particular, if you're comfortable sharing, that you've used over the years?
I like to have fun, right? I mean, my philosophy has always been, make a patient smile, even at the worst kind of times. If you can help that patient, make them smile, or the family smile, be professional, and try to have fun. As I say, in the course of a day, we can go from dealing with that 80, 90-year-old grandmother type thing and grandfather who have a lot of history to delivering a baby and to seeing someone's life end, right? All within 2 hours. So you're changing your whole mood from the joy of delivering a baby to seeing someone's life end, or seeing those different swings that you have to deal with. And same as the constable said, you got to change every time on every call.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
No, we've talked a lot about the new campaign, making the right call, being educated when you're calling. Obviously, some people do make just the wrong call. Do you have any particular stories you're comfortable sharing about some of the more ridiculous calls you've gotten?
I can tell you lots. I guess the worst ones we get the 3 a.m. call, where all of a sudden, someone's had a back pain for like 2 weeks, and at 3 a.m. they decide they want to go to the hospital because they think they're going to get treated right away, and they're not. If you've had back pain for 2 weeks, make your appointment with your doctor. Go to a walk-in clinic, because really, the emergency departments, that's not a priority for them. So you're going to sit in the emergency department until they get to you. Mm-hmm. Those are the type of things that as we said, make the right call. Stories, I've had lots. I mean, probably not for family.
We're running out of time. One last thing I want to know is how difficult it is to do your work when you're rushing to a hospital and you're in the back of an ambulance. Like I've don't tell my mom, I've stood up in the back of a bus when it's like going down the road. It's difficult to stand up. Like, how do you guys, get a needle in or whatever when you're...
Usually what the paramedics will try to do is do a lot of that before they leave the scene.
Oh.
A lot of times you'll see crews on the scene, and they'll have the patient in the back, and you'll stand there. Well, why aren't they going? Why aren't they going? It's because they're doing the needle injections, right? They're doing the tubing, and they'll do it in the back before they leave the scene. Because it is difficult when you're in a moving vehicle, especially if you're going lights and sirens to the hospital. Your partners try to drive in a safe way, but unfortunately the public sometimes don't know how to react when they see an emergency vehicle coming behind them. So you try to do a lot of it, because if you get thrown, can get thrown around in the back quite severely at times, but you try not to. So you do a lot of stuff before you leave the scene. And if you're doing CPR in the back, you're positioning yourself so that you don't go off flying.
Well, we can't even pull up clips and talk on mic at the same time here. I'm sorry, Alex. This has
always the butt of the joke.
So I think my biggest takeaway from today is that 911 is for emergencies. Treat it like such. There are other resources out there. If it's a non-emergency, you can call just your local police number. You can
the local division.
Yeah, you can walk into a clinic. You can. There's a lot of options out there, but be respectful to your first responders. Remember, they have processes they need to follow, and just make the smart call. Know what you're doing. So our guests today were Constable David Hopkinson from the Toronto Police Services and Commander Peter Rotolo from the Toronto Paramedic Services. We thank them both for joining us. Next week, we'll be joined by my co-host Hannon. We'll be back, we hope. I miss her. If you'd like to listen to this episode again or any of our shows, please find us on Facebook or Twitter at Dum Dums Radio. Go there. You can find out more information about the topics we're discussing, some links. Coming up next is Blue Remedy with blues doctor Julie Hill. But before I say goodbye here, we're just going to toss out to a local artist, formerly of Montreal. Now I believe she's living in Toronto, Danielle Duval, with her song Ambulance, which kind of fits the topic today.